actually counterintuitively, I've never felt so connected to my loved ones. I would know in London it was 5 p.m., whatever time my kids were bathed. I would kneel down by my bed, close my eyes. I'd be bathing them. I could feel the contours of the skin beneath my hands. My son's 4th birthday was the longest day. Sitting in the darkness in my cell, I see my son wake up, run into mummy's bedroom. Where's daddy? And why hasn't he got me a present? And I saw him being put to bed by his mummy. And I'm seeing him thinking, the last thought this night is perhaps daddy doesn't love me. So I remember talking to the FBI, and because when I was looking for these kids, Americans and British, I met FBI, who told me things about the grey man. You know, the grey man thing is if you're kidnapped, you don't want to stand out. You know, or if you're in an abduction situation, you be the grey person, grey man. And it was a tidbit of information this FBI told me when he was talking about these other kids who've been kidnapped, because then the grey man is you're less, if you don't stand out, you're less likely to be picked out and beheaded. And I remember, but what's weird is I'd forgotten that, but in a survival situation, my brain was like, I don't know what this person needs to survive. One of the things it gives you is almost total recall over your whole life. You may have age 7 been told how to make make fire or do something, and I was literally at my fingertips had all these memories of information which could be useful in that situation, and my brain was just giving it to me, not knowing what I would need to get through it. So it's an amazing experience. So I remember the Taliban had told this family, I was in a family home, it was 6 brothers who were all kind of tribal elders. Some were in the Taliban, one was a mullah. They had wives and children, which we never saw the wives, but you could hear their voices in the compound. There may have been 15 people living there. The Taliban bases were all dotted around. So it was a safe house for the Taliban, not for the family. But they told the family I'm a spy, an unbeliever. So it was like the movies where this heavy wooden door would open up. They'd pretty much, not quite throw, but put the tray of food because I'm dirty unbeliever. And I, with my little, years of understanding with locals, the stuff I'd read, picked up tidbits, I would stand up, greet them, thank them, not plead for your life. So trying to forge this thing that I am a fellow human being, not just some unbeliever label, but not being too scared. So I just very quickly was in this kind of survival mode, trying to impress upon, that's my first thing, that I am human like you, not just someone, a label unbeliever. And we were in there for about 3 or 4 weeks where they were clearly, I don't know what they were up to, finding out information about us, investigating. So that was quite tough. And what little light we had would, as the sun went behind the mountains, the compound walls, so by about 4 p.m. you're in sort of gloom. By 6 p.m. you're in darkness. And, my biggest fear was having my throat cut in the dark. That was the thing. That was the sword of Damocles hanging over my head that entire time.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It sounds pretty terrifying.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
So you're there 3 to 4 weeks at the time. In terms of your day-to-day life and your interaction with those Taliban captors, were they hostile with you guys, with you or your fixer?
So, again, a little tidbit I picked up of information proved incredibly valuable that I hadn't thought was valuable. When I remember reading a book by a British SAS guy who'd been captured in Iraq, that if you're in a cell, time can break a human. When you're in this, like in the Hollywood movies where you see in the old prison movies, they were scratching off the days of the week, and then you do 6 and then a line through it. My fixer was scratching off the days of time. But when you're being told by a Taliban commander, you're either going to both die, we're going to either kill you or not, but one day came in, so you'll either both live or you'll both die. We're just going to investigate you. We'll be back in a few days just to check. So someone's basically telling you, I'm going to investigate you, and if we don't like you, you're going to be killed. And he's quite vague about the time, and they were always late and not turning up. Time really breaks down. When you're in darkness as well, you lose sense. And I'd read somewhere, some British soldiers talking about, well, you break time down into routine. So you don't think about the passing time because it can drive you insane. And my fixer had a breakdown because endless dark days and nights in darkness, being threatened, you don't know if you're going to be there for a year, crushes you. But if I read somewhere, break into routine. So I very quickly established a routine, which was I'd get up in the morning. Now, again, this is you're pumped full of adrenaline and cortisol. So, I'm a big smoker, but I never felt so good in there. So I'd wake up in the morning. My first routine was that it was darkness when I woke up. There was a little hole at the back of the cell. And that hole, if I crouched down, I could, sit, and they would bring in green tea about just after sunrise. So I'd sit and have green tea and a cigarette. Then I would crouch it became my window onto the world. And I would crouch to the back of the cell and look out this little hole, and I could see there was a little apricot tree just outside. But if you squinted, you could see beyond the fields. And if you really squinted, you could see the mountains. And I would sit there and pray. My routine was prayer, the Lord's Prayer. It's like, they say you never find an atheist in a foxhole, and I think the same in a cell. It's a non-denominational religion, I would say in my bit. So I'd pray, and then I would think of home. And again, this was natural. I've talked to lots of other hostages because I've got to know other hostage situations with ISIS, and it's something the body naturally does. You escape from your captivity, and one of the things that allows you to escape is to escape into memory of childhood memories if they're good ones. I was blessed enough to have good childhood memories of summer holidays with my family, swimming in the ocean, and that would be my morning. Then I would wash my clothes. Taliban offered to wash my clothes, but I liked washing, the routine of doing the socks. I had a bucket shower every day or every few days. I had a bucket over the toilet hole. Privacy was quite an issue, but you have to. Then it was exercise. I would exercise, do 50 press-ups, sit-ups, which I never do in England. And then, of course, I've killed half the morning. Then they would bring in breakfast. And then I would plot my conversations. I would prepare for conversations when the Taliban came in. They would come in, not every day, but some of the family members would come in every day to bring in lunch and dinner. But I would prepare the conversation knowing that with the Afghans, you can't move too quickly. You can't say, come on, let me out of here. I'll give you $100 or something. But I would think, right, I've got to slowly win them over, slowly try and see what's happening, see if I can get a phone call out. Or that became it. And then my other routine was every day I would lie in my bed, close my eyes, and escape. It was darkness about 4 p.m. So I would do this 4 till 6, close my eyes, think of where I take my kids or go for friends, to meet friends. You can't just kill time by saying, I'll go to a nice restaurant in New York because you've used up 2 minutes. So you'd have to think, okay, what restaurant am I going to go to? Who's coming? What are we eating? What are we talking about? And if you have this real-time daydreaming, you've used up 2 or 3 hours and you've escaped your cell. Gives you the strength to carry on. And then in the evening, I knew what time it was in London for my children's bath time. And here's the thing, very quickly, and occasionally I'd have the Taliban come and interrogate me. So there wasn't any too much aggression. You don't need much because you're in a dark cell knowing these guys will kill you at any moment. So it focuses the mind. But the overwhelming experiences in last amount of time in darkness, cut off from the outside world, completely isolated. Actually, counterintuitively, I've never felt so connected to my loved ones and so connected to those people and life outside. And it's an amazing experience. It's something, so it's like one of the greatest lessons you'll ever have in life. If any fucker wants to give it to me again, I'd shoot myself or them to go through it again, but I don't regret it. I remember at Bath, I would know in London it was 5 p.m., whatever time my kids were bed. My kids were 3 and 4 at that point, or 3 and 5. I would kneel down by my bed, close my eyes. This is what I meant about feeling connected. I could feel my children having bath time, and I'd be bathing them. I could feel the contours of the skin beneath my hands, and it was my moment with my children every day. And then I would, carry on with my time in captivity. But those are the routines to keep me going.
Would you talk to them?
So my children, well, they were both my strength and my Achilles heel. So I hid 2 photos of my sons, Luke and Gabriel, from the Taliban, in the boot of my shoes. And every night before going to sleep, I would take them out. We'd have a little gas burner. We took off the proper thing. It was like a candlelight. And I would look at this photographs of my sons. If I looked at my children's photos for 1 minute, it gave me the strength needed to keep fighting, to live, to get home to see them. If I looked upon their faces too long, literally 3 minutes, I was overwhelmed by how I'd failed them, how I was going to cause so much suffering in their lives that it would break me. So you had to limit that. I did when I was pretty sure they were going to kill me, the Taliban. So I didn't talk to them, but there was one day I was pretty convinced, because I'd been told, they'd asked me to convert, that I was going to be killed. So I decided to write a letter introducing myself to my sons, because at age 5 and 3, they might soon forget who I was. And so this was a letter I was writing to be read to them when they were like 21. And it was this letter saying, "Dear sons, you don't know me. I'm your father." And it was to tell them how much I love them. And I get to this point, I loved you more than anything. And I'm like, who are you fucking kidding? Because I know a 17-year-old or 19-year-old who's suffered will read this letter and go, you're a fraud. Because if you really loved me, you wouldn't have played Russian roulette with your life and gone off to film in secret. And I was planning to then swallow this, put it up. I again read somewhere, that when bodies are found, FBI will look up an orifice and find a letter. But I was like, my son would know I'm a fraud. And I felt a fraud. And that, because I was a fraud. If you really love your son, why are you off? I'm not a soldier serving my country, protecting freedom and democracy. I'm making a documentary. The other form of communication was the worst. This was the longest day of my life. Longest night was my youngest son's birthday. And I'm so connected to them. I literally could see friends. I remember seeing a woman's face lit up by candlelight. A year after I'm released, I'm talking to this woman. I said, "Oh, God, it's really weird. I saw your face one night." She goes, "Oh, I was in Lourdes in France, this shrine." She goes, "I lit a candle for you." God knows what's happened, but you are so connected to on your loved one's wavelength. My son's 4th birthday was the longest day in captivity, because I see him, I know what time it is in London. I'm sitting in the darkness in my cell. I see my son wake up, run into mummy's bedroom. We're divorced at that point. Run, "Dad, here's," all excited, because I would always send them great presents back. Had a lovely relationship with my boy, still have a lovely relationship. But I knew he'd be like excited, but then thinking by lunchtime when friends are coming around for a little party, where's Daddy? And looking up, expecting, and why hasn't he got me a present? And I saw him go to bed, being put to bed by his mummy. Because, I know what the house looks like. I can imagine everything exactly. And I'm seeing him in bed, and I'm seeing him thinking, the last thought this night is perhaps Daddy doesn't love me. Because how else is a 4-year-old? Just to give you the end of that story, when I arrived back in London 4 months later after that, when I get to Heathrow and the glass doors slide open, arrival, my little son who comes up to him in the school says, Daddy, I'm 4. I'm like, I know, I hadn't forgotten. I couldn't. Anyway, so that was a tough one. There was so levels of communication. Yeah, but they were hard. You had to block them out to get through it.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the interview. If you got anything out of this video at all, please like the video, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought of the video, tell me who you'd like to see on the show. I really appreciate the support. It goes a long way on these platforms, as you guys know. Most importantly, I have some excellent interviews coming up in the future that I'm really, really excited about. So please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of them. But that's it. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you again soon.